Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that most people won't talk about openly, but it's critical if you've ever felt frustrated in relationships. No blocking, no chasing. Make this move and let them feel it naturally. Now, I know that might already sound controversial, even counterintuitive, because so many of us have been taught to either chase relentlessly or cut someone off entirely when things get tricky. But what if I told you there's a more powerful way, one that doesn't involve drama, games, or emotional extremes, and yet can shift the entire dynamic in your favor? I've seen it countless times in my work with people navigating complicated relationships. One moment, someone is texting constantly, calling nonstop, desperate for attention. The next, they're ghosted or blocked, wondering why the connection fizzled. And here's the truth. That constant chasing or abrupt shutting down rarely works. It creates tension, confusion, and resentment. The move I'm going to show you today is the exact opposite. It's subtle, it's deliberate, and it works because it taps into something far deeper than surface-level attention. It engages the mind and the emotions naturally. This is about presence without pressure, about showing someone that you value yourself and your boundaries without forcing them to prove anything to you. And believe me, I've seen how people respond when this principle is applied correctly. There's a shift, an almost invisible tension that changes how the other person perceives you. It's not manipulation. It's the natural outcome of confidence, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break this down step by step. I'll guide you through the mindset you need, the subtle moves that actually make an impact, and why doing less in the right way can create far more influence than doing too much. By the end, you'll understand why blocking, chasing, or forcing attention is outdated, and how one strategic approach can make them feel it without you having to lift a finger. So if you're ready to stop the drama and finally see results the smart way, let's get into it. 1. Stop the chase, start the pause. Stop the chase, start the pause. This is where most people completely miss the point. When someone pulls away or seems distant, the instinct is immediate. Text them, call them, try to fix it, or prove your value by chasing harder. I've seen it hundreds of times in my practice, people exhausting themselves, sending multiple messages, analyzing every word, hoping for reassurance. But what if I told you that the moment you stop, that exact pause can carry far more power than anything you do in pursuit? Think of it like this. When you chase someone, you're communicating need, desperation, and uncertainty. These are not qualities that make a person feel secure or drawn to you. In therapy sessions, I've often asked people to reflect on their own behavior in relationships. Time and again, those who admitted they were constantly on for someone, texting first, replying instantly, or over-explaining themselves, reported feeling drained and undervalued. And the other side? Most of the time, the person being chased didn't respect the constant availability. They either took it for granted or felt smothered. Now, the pause I'm talking about isn't about punishment or games. It's about creating space while maintaining your own emotional stability. It's a deliberate step back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. When you stop chasing, you signal that your time, your attention, and your energy are not freely available for someone else to take. In my experience, this alone shifts the dynamic. People begin to notice your absence, and they start to question the automatic assumption that you will always be there. That small shift in perception is powerful because it engages their mind. They can't help but think, wonder, and reassess how they feel. I've worked with individuals who applied this approach and were amazed at the results. One person shared that after implementing the pause, they noticed the other person starting to reach out more naturally, showing interest without the need for constant prompting. The energy in the relationship subtly changed. They became intrigued, more attentive, and even affectionate without any forced effort. That's the beauty of this move. It's not about manipulation, it's about aligning your actions with your self-worth and letting the natural dynamics of attention, respect, and attraction do the rest. So if you're constantly chasing someone feeling anxious or overthinking every interaction, this is your first step. Stop. Pause. Let your presence carry weight by not being endlessly available. Trust that when applied correctly, this move creates curiosity, respect, and genuine interest, without drama, without fights, without unnecessary pressure. You'll find that people respond more to the calm, grounded version of you than the desperate version you've been showing. 2. Confidence speaks louder than texts. Confidence speaks louder than texts. This is one of those truths that's simple but often completely misunderstood. Men come to me all the time frustrated, thinking that if they just text more, compliment more, or show they care constantly, a woman will feel more attracted to them. But in reality, what creates attraction is rarely about the quantity of your messages. It's about the quality of your presence, your energy, and the unspoken signals you send. I remember one session with a man who admitted he would check his phone every hour, waiting for a reply, overanalyzing each word, and even planning his next message based on the last emoji she sent. He felt like he was putting in 100% of the effort while getting little in return. When I asked him what he thought confidence looked like, he struggled to answer. Here's the thing. Confidence isn't about being loud, persistent, or constantly proving your value. True confidence is calm, composed, and grounded in the knowledge that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's attention. When you approach interactions from this mindset, everything changes. Sending one thoughtful message, keeping your tone measured, and then stepping back communicates far more than a dozen desperate texts. Men often underestimate the subtle power of restraint. In my experience, a man who shows he has his own life, his own priorities, and doesn't need constant validation becomes instantly more appealing. Women notice it. It's in the energy, not the words. Confidence also shows in how you carry yourself outside of texting. I've worked with clients who began implementing simple routines, focusing on their fitness, hobbies, or personal growth while maintaining minimal but meaningful communication with the person they were interested in. The result was remarkable. They reported that women started to initiate conversations, check in more genuinely, and even express curiosity about their lives. Why? Because confidence creates scarcity without trying. It signals that you're a man who values himself, and people naturally respond to that. Here's a key lesson for men. Your attention is your currency. Don't spend it recklessly trying to earn someone's approval. When you slow down, when you let your confidence shine through your actions rather than your texts, you become magnetic. This isn't about arrogance or coldness, it's about balance. It's about creating space for respect, curiosity, and genuine attraction to grow. So, if you've been caught in the trap of over-texting, chasing, or constantly worrying about your next move, shift your mindset. Focus on building your life, your confidence, and your presence. Send messages with intention, not desperation. Speak with self-assuredness, not over-explanation. When you do this, attraction grows naturally without forcing it, and that's a lesson too many men overlook. 3. Boundaries create attraction. Boundaries create attraction. This is one of the most misunderstood principles in modern relationships, yet it's also one of the most powerful. Men often think that being nice or available all the time will make someone like them more. The truth is the exact opposite. When you have clear boundaries and you protect your time, energy, and emotions, you immediately create respect, and respect is the foundation of attraction. I've seen this play out countless times in my practice. One client came to me frustrated because he felt like he was constantly giving texts, calls, favors, while the other person seemed indifferent. He was exhausted and confused. I asked him to try something counterintuitive. Stop overextending himself. No more answering immediately. No more saying yes to every request. No more trying to prove his value. At first, he worried that he would lose the connection, but what happened instead was fascinating. The other person started noticing him differently. They became curious, engaged more genuinely, and even expressed appreciation he hadn't seen before. Here's the key. Boundaries are not about being cold or unkind. They're about valuing yourself enough to say, this is what I can give, and this is what I won't compromise on. That energy, self-respect in action, is magnetic. It communicates that you're not desperate for approval and that your life has weight, purpose, and priorities beyond waiting for someone else's attention. Women and people in general respond to that energy. It's subtle, but incredibly powerful. Boundaries also protect your emotional well-being. When you stop bending over backward to meet every expectation, you prevent resentment from building. I've worked with men who admitted that their constant availability left them frustrated and drained. By creating boundaries, they not only improved the relationship dynamics, but also felt more confident, grounded, and at peace with themselves. That internal calm shows externally, and it changes everything. Another point I emphasize to men is that boundaries create tension, the kind of tension that draws someone in rather than pushes them away. When you're too available, interactions become predictable and even boring. But when you have boundaries, you're demonstrating that your attention is valuable, your time is limited, and your presence is meaningful. That's the attraction principle most people never teach. So, if you've been overextending yourself, bending over backward, or constantly trying to please, it's time to shift your approach. Start by identifying your non-negotiables, your time, your energy, your emotional space, and honor them. Speak up respectfully when something crosses the line, and stop feeling guilty for valuing yourself. Once you do, you'll notice people start engaging with you differently. They'll respect your space, value your attention, and most importantly, feel drawn to the confident, grounded man you've become. Boundaries aren't just rules, they're a magnet for respect, curiosity, and real attraction. 4. The power of subtle absence. The power of subtle absence. This is where most people get it wrong. Many think that showing interest means being constantly present, texting, calling, or showing up at every opportunity. But in my experience working with people in relationships, absence, when done intentionally and subtly, can completely transform the dynamic. I remember working with a client who had been in a long-term relationship for over a year. He loved his partner, and she loved him too, but somewhere along the way, he had fallen into the pattern of over-availability. He would answer texts immediately, rearrange his schedule to accommodate her, and always say yes, even when he didn't want to. While his intentions were good, it created a subtle imbalance. His partner had grown accustomed to constant attention, and the natural spark, the kind that keeps desire alive, had started to fade. I suggested a small but strategic shift. Instead of always being available, he would start practicing subtle absence. He wouldn't block or ignore her, and he wouldn't play games, but he would stop bending over backward to prove his care constantly. He began engaging when it felt meaningful, dedicating time to his own hobbies and personal growth, and showing up fully when he did interact with her. The result was astonishing. Instead of feeling neglected, she started noticing him more. She would initiate conversations, express appreciation for his presence, and seemed genuinely curious about his life. The subtle absence created a sense of space, which gave her room to reflect on what she valued about the relationship. She began to feel his value without him having to chase or demand it. This is the lesson for men. Being present doesn't mean being everywhere at all times. Presence carries weight when it's meaningful, not constant. Subtle absence creates a contrast that highlights your worth and keeps the relationship dynamic alive. People naturally lean into the space you create. They fill it with attention, respect, and even desire, without you forcing anything. It's important to understand that this isn't about manipulation. It's about balance, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. By giving yourself space, you also give the other person space, which allows both of you to engage from a healthier, more grounded place. In relationships, the men who do this best are the ones who are secure in themselves. They don't over-explain, they don't panic over delayed responses, and they understand that value isn't measured by constant presence, but by the energy, confidence, and authenticity they bring. Subtle absence is a tool to remind both yourself and the other person that your attention matters, and that attraction grows naturally when it's not forced. So if you've ever felt stuck in a relationship where your efforts seem invisible, try this approach. Step back a little, invest in yourself, and let subtle absence do the work. You'll be surprised how naturally the dynamic shifts, making connection deeper, respect stronger, and attraction undeniable. 5. Engage without over-explaining. Engage without over-explaining. This is a lesson many men struggle with because the instinct is to justify, clarify, or over-communicate in relationships. I've seen it countless times in my work. Someone will feel a shift in energy from their partner and immediately go into explain myself mode, sending long messages, calling repeatedly, or trying to prove their intentions. While it may feel like the right move in the moment, it often has the opposite effect. It reduces attraction and signals insecurity. I remember working with a client who had been dating his partner for 6 months. He loved her deeply, but he constantly felt the need to explain why he couldn't respond immediately, why he wanted space, or why he handled situations a certain way. At first, she appreciated his honesty, but over time, the constant explanations started to drain the relationship. She began noticing patterns of over-justification and even unconsciously started feeling less attracted. I suggested a different approach. Engage, but do it intentionally and without over-explaining. This doesn't mean being distant or cold. It means being confident in your choices and trusting that your presence and actions communicate your intentions better than long explanations ever could. He started applying this by sending concise, thoughtful messages when necessary, showing up fully in person, and focusing on being present rather than trying to prove himself constantly. The results were almost immediate. His partner began responding differently. She was more attentive, curious, and engaged because she felt the authentic version of him rather than a man trying to justify every action. This is the subtle but powerful dynamic most men overlook. Over-explaining reduces the natural tension that creates attraction, while concise, intentional engagement enhances it. Engaging without over-explaining also gives you emotional freedom. You no longer feel trapped by the need to control perceptions or anticipate every reaction. You can focus on your own priorities, values, and growth while still nurturing the connection in a meaningful way. In my experience, men who master this approach notice that women start leaning in, showing appreciation, and even expressing desire in ways they hadn't before. The lesson is clear: attraction thrives in balance. Be present, be intentional, but don't try to narrate your worth or defend your choices constantly. Trust that your value speaks for itself. When you engage this way, the relationship dynamic changes naturally. You're no longer chasing, no longer anxious, and no longer stuck trying to earn approval. Instead, you create a space where respect, curiosity, and genuine connection can flourish. So if you've ever felt like your efforts in a relationship go unnoticed, try stepping back from over-explaining. Engage from a place of calm confidence and watch the subtle shift in attention, appreciation, and attraction. Often, less really is more, and the right energy, expressed with clarity and confidence, can do more than any amount of chasing ever could. 6. Let curiosity do the work. Let curiosity do the work. This is one of the most underestimated strategies in relationships, yet it's incredibly powerful. Many men believe that attraction comes from constant effort, texts, calls, gestures, or trying to anticipate every need. But in reality, some of the strongest attraction grows when you allow curiosity to naturally guide the connection. When you step back and let the other person wonder about you, it creates a subtle tension that pulls them in without forcing anything. I've seen this countless times in my practice. One client had been struggling in his relationship because he was always available, always explaining his schedule, and always trying to maintain control over the dynamic. It was exhausting, and he felt like he was running a one-man show. I suggested a different approach: stop oversharing, stop overcommunicating, and let curiosity do its work. Instead of filling every silence with words or updates, he focused on living his life fully, investing in his hobbies, career, and personal growth. The shift was remarkable. By not revealing every thought, feeling, or action immediately, he created a sense of intrigue. His partner started initiating more conversations, asking questions, and even expressing interest in ways she hadn't before. She was engaging out of genuine curiosity rather than obligation. This is the subtle power of letting curiosity lead. When someone has the space to wonder about you, their mind naturally starts investing in the connection, without you having to chase or convince them. Curiosity also works because it respects both parties' space. It's not about manipulation, it's about allowing the relationship to breathe. When you stop trying to control reactions or force attention, you give room for authentic feelings to surface. I often tell clients that attraction thrives in mystery, not in constant exposure. A man who is confident enough to live his life fully, while being selectively present in the relationship, becomes magnetic because he's showing that his value isn't dependent on constant validation. Another key aspect is that curiosity encourages emotional investment. When someone is left wondering about you, they begin to reflect on what they feel and why. This reflection deepens their connection with you in ways that chasing or over-explaining never can. In my experience, relationships that incorporate this principle are healthier, more balanced, and far more engaging. Both partners feel drawn to each other without the constant stress of proving worth. So, if you've been caught in the trap of trying to fill every gap with attention, step back. Let your presence speak for itself. Live your life fully, focus on your growth, and allow curiosity to naturally create engagement. When done correctly, this strategy doesn't just improve attraction, it transforms the relationship dynamic entirely, making connection feel effortless, natural, and far more compelling. 7. Watch the shift happen. Naturally. Watch the shift happen naturally. This is the culmination of everything we've discussed so far, the moment when your patience, self-respect, and subtle actions begin to create real, tangible changes in how someone responds to you. So many men get caught up in trying to force reactions, pushing for attention, or chasing validation, and they never give themselves the chance to see the natural effect of their energy. But when you step back, apply boundaries, engage intentionally, and allow curiosity to work, the shift happens almost effortlessly. I've had clients who were frustrated because they felt invisible in their relationships. One man in particular had been trying too hard, constantly texting, over-explaining, and rearranging his life to accommodate his partner. He came to me drained, worried that his efforts were meaningless. I advised him to change his approach, stop chasing, respect his own boundaries, engage without over-explaining, and allow curiosity and subtle absence to take over. Initially, he doubted it would work. He feared losing the connection entirely. Within a few weeks, the change was undeniable. Instead of him initiating every interaction, his partner began to reach out more, showing genuine interest and enthusiasm. She started noticing things about him that had gone unappreciated before: his passions, his confidence, the way he carried himself. What had felt like constant struggle transformed into effortless attraction, and it happened without a single desperate move on his part. The shift was natural, authentic, and lasting. This is why the principle of no blocking, no chasing works so effectively. It's not about playing games, it's about creating a dynamic where your presence carries value because it's grounded in self-respect, not desperation. By giving space, maintaining boundaries, and engaging meaningfully, you allow the other person to reflect on what they truly want and how they feel about you. In many ways, your restraint creates a mirror. They begin to see you as someone with purpose, confidence, and emotional stability, which naturally draws them closer. The beauty of this approach is that it's sustainable. You're no longer running on emotional highs and lows, constantly worried about whether your effort is enough. Instead, you're operating from a place of calm control, letting attraction and connection build organically. In my experience, relationships that shift this way tend to be healthier, more balanced, and more fulfilling because both parties are participating consciously rather than reacting to anxiety or pressure. So, watch the shift happen naturally. Trust the process. Trust that when you respect yourself, engage intentionally, and allow curiosity to work its magic, the other person will respond in ways that feel genuine and unforced. This isn't a strategy for manipulation, it's a framework for creating connection in its most authentic form. Step back, let your energy speak for itself, and witness the transformation. The results are often subtle at first, but over time, they become undeniable, leaving a lasting impact that no amount of chasing or over-communication could ever achieve. In the end, relationships aren't about chasing, over-explaining, or forcing attention. They're about presence, self-respect, and balance. By stopping the chase, setting boundaries, engaging intentionally, and allowing curiosity to work, you create a natural dynamic that draws people in without manipulation or drama. The subtle moves we've discussed, pausing, respecting your own time, and letting attraction grow organically, shift how others perceive and value you. Trust yourself, trust the process, and focus on your growth. When you do, you'll see the change unfold naturally, creating connection, respect, and genuine attraction that lasts.